one of the questions that I really wanted to ask both of you women is, do you ever kind of wish that the wool hadn't been pulled away from your eyes? Like, do you ever have that moment where you're like, I want to go back to when I didn't know this?
Personally, no. I wish if that was the case that it wasn't existing. Um, you and I have talked about this before, and the fact that this industry, being in the rescue, gives me so much more than I give it in terms of
Mm.
the fulfillment and all of that. So if it was still happening and I didn't know it, I don't think I'd want the wool over my eyes again, just because that doesn't mean that the horses that mean so much to me here wouldn't be going through what they were going through. It just means that I turned a blind eye to it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Talia?
But Talia's on the ground. I mean, I'm not on the ground nearly as much as Talia is, so I don't know how she does that.
Uh, see, it's interesting because like it's hitting me different. Like it makes me like want to start sobbing
Hmm.
because like there's the there's the side of me that's like the amount of pressure and anxiety I feel like all the time. To take that away would be a true blessing
Hmm.
because it is with me nonstop. I don't have a, like, the wool is off. Like, I don't have an escape from it. I can't, so to have, like, that, the simple life, like, I look at people, like, even if I'm out with my mom at lunch, I'm like, God, they have it fucking easy. They have no idea. And, like, to take that weight off of me of, like, so much would be nice. So, selflessly, I want to say yes to your question. Yeah, I would love, like, fucking take it off of me. Let me go live in my fairy tale world of the fake real world. But, like, just like Olivia, like, at the same time, though, like, no, like, I was put here for a purpose, and, like, someone's got to fight for them, and someone's got to be the one to step up and help them, and, like, take the wool off everybody's eyes so they see what's happening so that these poor horses and donkeys are not suffering and, like, in these conditions that they're in. So it's, like, it's a two-sided answer for me where, like, I would love a moment of like
Reprieve.
reprieve, yeah.
I would love a
But
night
like,
of not staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m.
yeah,
Just wondering
exactly.
how everything's gonna work or how it's all gonna go. Yeah.
And you'll never have that ever again.
Yeah.
Like it's a scary thing, you know? Like once you go into rescue and like you kind of commit yourself to it, it's this weight and this like and I don't want to call it a burden because you choose to take it on, but it's like this weight that you choose to carry where like she said she wakes up and stares at the ceiling at 3 a.m. Like you can't shut it off once it's on, and it's just something you have to live with now that you've chosen this path, and it's just a lot. It's a lot more than people realize.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, I'm sure that Talia feels this too, but I also feel, since I'm the founder and president, people always look at me for how it's going to continue to go or how we're going to fix this problem, and I don't have anyone else to look at. So it's just me to shoulder, to make sure that we survive, to make sure that we can keep the horses that we have having everything that they need, and to try to save more. And sometimes I just wish I could be like the kid in the scenario that just looks at their parent being like, can you fix this?
Yeah.
Instead of me. So I find that's the hardest, is being the one that everybody looks to when it is hard and you don't, it's just on you.
You know, you started by bidding in online auctions, not in-person auctions, and then one day your boyfriend at the time asked you if you'd ever been to the Bowie auction, which is in Bowie, Texas. Long story short, you went. What do you remember about that first livestock auction that you attended?
It was extremely overwhelming. It was really hot. And I remember being so nervous that I was like shaking, like my hands were like shaking walking in. And he was like, it's okay, it's going to be okay. And I was like, no, because I don't know what I'm going to find. Like, I don't know what this is. And I just remember walking around and just like, they put a lot of the nicer stuff up under the covers. So like when you first walk in, it's like, oh, okay, like every horse is in a stall. And granted, back then it was, they didn't have the staff during COVID. So a lot of horses didn't have water and they didn't have food. Now, though they have the staff, everyone has food and water. So it was like walking in and I'm hot. And the horses don't have water and they're all sweating and you're like, oh my God, what the fuck is this? And then you get down to the outside portion, which is like hell. And that's where all the horses are out in pens. And they all have water and food, but they don't have shelter. They don't have cover. They're standing in like this much of shit. And it was just really like sad and overwhelming, because then it's like, you want to do so much, but you can only do so much. And it just made me really like I was overwhelmed. You don't know what to think. Like anyone that goes, like I've talked to Katie, I've talked to Mariah, like anyone that comes there for the weekend, even my sister, the first time she came, is always like that question, like, so what did you think? And they're like, I don't even know how to process it. Like, think this is going to take me like a week to really register the amount of like trauma and the amount of neglect that you see, because it's not something that we as humans have to face on a daily basis, if ever.
Because you saw suffering.
Oh yeah, yeah. You see it everywhere. I mean, everywhere.
What, you rescued horses, on that trip, if I'm remembering your story correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you choose? That's the thing that stands out to me, is how much of a weight it must be to choose some horses and not choose others.
That one was hard. Well, even the next month after that was hard, because I was going off of, I didn't know who anybody was.
Sure.
No one. I knew they were there. I didn't know who they were. So I was just sitting in there, and like all people had ever said was that like the slaughter price was below a certain number, and if you don't get them, then they're going to get them. So I had my little list, but then I'm sitting there and they're like, it's below the line. So I'm like, well, I'll just bid because they're going to die. So then that's like why my numbers kept getting so high, because it was just like this panic. And I was like,
so they're walking these horses through, right?
They're doing with the loose cell, they run them through, and then with everything else, they ride them through.
Okay, got it. And so you're sitting there, and you've been told that any horses that are not sold for X amount of dollars. Do you remember what it was?
Usually it was around 600 at the time.
600. So you're thinking, all of these horses that are going for below 600, I have to save, because they're below 600. That means that they're going to go to slaughter.
Yes.
How many horses was it?
It was over 80.
And that's just...
You got over 80 in your second time going to auction?
First.
Oh my God. Wow, you're a much braver woman than me.
Oh, I woke up the next day literally in the hotel room with the guy I was dating, and I had a full-on panic attack and was like, what the fuck did I just do? It was this overwhelming, like, I don't have anywhere to put them. I don't have, like, all I fundraised for was like the purchase price. We had like 40,000 come in from that viral video. So I spent it. I made sure that I spent that money. But then I'm like, well, how am I supposed to transport them to California? Where are they going to go to California? Who's going to pay the food, the vet bills? We don't have shelters. I had nothing. So that's when he was like, calm down, take a breath, calm down. Let's figure this out together. He's like, people donated to save them. They're going to donate to help you with them. And I was like, okay. He's like, let's sit down. You've got to start a GoFundMe. Okay. Like, do you have a place to put them? Nope, I do not. Do you have any people with land? Not at this time. And because, during COVID, everyone's stuck inside. I wasn't working. I wasn't like able to really socialize in a way that I thought in a way I would have normally been able to.
Right.
So then, he's like, well, let's just start a GoFundMe. Let's like try to find a rough amount of like, if you need to rent a place, what's that going to cost? What's food going to cost? What's vetting? Do the whole thing. Let's just get the GoFundMe out there. And I was like, okay, let's do that. Like, let's put energy, focus. Did it. Literally boarded a plane on Tuesday, flew back, and everyone at the barn, like the 10 volunteers that we had running the Red Barn, as we called it, were like, what did you do? You're insane. I'm like, I know.
We have 80 horses.
We're going to figure this out. Like,
so
even if we have to put
a pitchfork.
Exactly. Like,
time to go.
We're going to find a way. Like, I believe in God. And I was like, if he opened this door, then he's better has a freaking, like, there better be an answer to it. And I literally like grabbed one of the horses and I went out and like riding on the street, and all of a sudden this car's rolling up behind me. And I'm like, okay, creeper, like, what do you want? And the guy rolls his window down, and I look over, and it's my friend Nate that I hadn't seen since I was like my early 20s. And I was like, oh my God, Nate, what are you doing? And he's like, I was wondering when I was going to run into you. I heard you had some horses or a rescue or something on this street. And my dad just had to be moved to a home. So I moved into his house, and I'm going to fix it up and sell it down the road. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, yeah, we're right, literally like 3 houses down. You're that house down there. And he's like, yeah. He's like, it's got like 4 acres. If you ever need land, just let me know. And I'm like,
now.
Nate, you couldn't have come at a better time, buddy.
How serious are you?
You're
Yeah,
like,
and I was
Nate,
like-
that better not have just been like a half-hearted offer because we're moving in.
Yeah, no, I literally was like, can I see it? I sort of need it like tomorrow. And he was like, yeah, it's right here. Come down. So he like walked me through, and it was just like all junk because his dad was a hoarder. So like, you know, just from his dad living there forever, there's just tools and trash and like just stuff everywhere, which you can kind of see in one of the pictures that I post. You can see all the junk. And so I went back to the Red Barn and I told them, and I was like, guys, I looked at Peter and I said, Peter, find us a bobcat and we need to clean this property up. And then we need to start calling every Lowe's and Home Depot and Bakersfield and Tractor Supply. We need all their panels. And like, we had a whole drawing out of how many panels, how much shade cell we needed to buy from Amazon, like everything. And we just literally did it. Like in 5 days, we cleaned it up. Lowe's and Home Depot and Tractor Supply delivered all the panels. We set it up. We like went on Etsy and like Pinterest to find out the best way to do shade cells for horse covers. And we literally did like shed like row, like red panels and shade cells, like all down these 4 acres. And then we did like big paddocks for the boy donkeys and the girl donkeys and like the draft horses and a million water buckets. And then we had to like, a lady her company donated concrete so we could have a concrete pad for the dumpster, for the trash service that would have to get back there to remove all of the shit. And we had to like clean this whole area and like build cover for all the feed that we needed to have brought in. And then they started rolling in.
What did you do for water? Was there a well?
There's water. No, the property was on a well, yes.
Okay.
So we had hose spigots and stuff. And we even, like, one lady donated who followed us on Instagram. She sent in misters, so we strung misters up everywhere.
Oh, wow.
And then we just all came together and, like, made it happen. And then luckily a bunch of sanctuaries and stuff reached out. And so a lot of the donkeys got taken to sanctuaries. And the horses did, too. And a lot of stuff we were able to move over into Red Barn because we only had, that property could fit like 30 horses and we only had maybe 20 at the time. So we could take 10 over there. And then, there's minis that can go with other minis and pens. And we just made it work. And then I went and was insane and did it again the next month. And then we had to get another property and do the same thing. And yeah. I learned a lot.
And then talk about some of the sport horses, including like racing thoroughbreds. How do they end up in these pipelines as well? Like, what are some of the stories that stand out to you that are exemplary of how, there was the famous show jumper who ended up in slaughter. Like, it's not just old, crippled, unwanted horses that end up in these situations. Like, there have been reports of ponies with braids still in their manes ending up in
yeah. I mean, one specific example I have is I saved a standard bred racing, like the trotting racing horses from, his name was Amigo de Grande, and he won almost $500,000 in his career. And he did most of that in Canada. And there's like a paper trail of like the top trainer in Canada who just reached a $20 million milestone or something like that. And the paper trail is that once he stopped winning, they brought him down to Ohio to an Amish auction, knowing it was an Amish auction, and sold him through there. And then he was an Amish cart horse for the next decade. And then he ended up at Bowie. And so that's, nobody wants to pay in a lot of these industries wants to pay for them once they stop making money. So it's just a filter to get them out are the auctions of saying like, oh, I didn't send them to slaughter, I sent them to the auction. Anyone could have got them.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's the guilt-free way to do it.
Yeah, but everyone knows what's happening.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of relying on things that seem to be outside of your control. You're relying on the generosity of people. You're allowing, honestly, down to like you're relying on the Instagram algorithm to get you to show up in people's feeds. You're relying on hay prices. You're relying on feed prices, which are always in flux. You're relying on the medical conditions of these animals. all of the unexpected things that could happen. Like, there's, when we're horse owners, we are taking on a certain amount of risk. We understand that there's going to be a lot of things that are outside of our control, but for you too, with the work that you do, that is amplified. Olivia, I asked you this question, and I hope it doesn't come off as too blunt, but what happens if you don't have enough money? Like, what happens?
What I'm about to say is going to make you feel bad, and I don't want it to, but that is one of the reasons why I was staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. last night, was that question, because it's true. I mean, I remember, like, the first year that I started rescuing, there was like this rumor going around that Instagram was going to shut down or something like that. I remember like social media or something, like I was scared about that. And that would be like debilitating. I'm sure there will always be other social media outlets. That's just what people want, like TikTok and all of that. But it is scary, especially coming from a show jumping background where it's a business that makes money and there's money everywhere, to then be in a horse industry that there is no hope of profit. Like, there's no hope of a nest egg. And personally, it's so uncomfortable for me to fundraise. Like, I hate asking for money. Like, and I know that sounds so stupid in what I'm doing, but I hate reaching out to people that are following us and asking again and again and again and again for things. And I know that that's just the nature of this business, but it's still hard. But I know I was hating on social media a little bit before with negative comments and stuff like that. But it is such a blessing too at the same time, because we have followers across the world that are like so dedicated to Abe and any of the horses, but I'm using Abe as an example because I posted like a thing on my stories the other day. There was his 3 years of being here, but I said like, I'll love you forever, old man, and people thought he died and like went nuts.
I cannot.
And so it's
I was gonna cry during the podcast, but like I can't.
But he's alive, like he's alive, so
No,
don't worry.
No, I know,
but
just the love. Ugh.
But when you say like, what do you worry about that? I do. I for sure worry about running out of money or not getting money anymore. But I also have such hope by posting them every day, by having people feel like they have a connection to these horses, that they're part of the process, that they see them in the auction, they see them looking like death, they see them get fat and happy here. That is kind of like our insurance policy, that nobody wants to see those guys go back to where they came from. And I hope that it never comes to this, but if it did come to it, that I didn't feel like we could financially take care of them anymore, I feel comfortable that the ones that are here would always find a good home, or people would step up for them. And maybe that's naive, maybe that's stupid thinking, but I won't sleep at night if I don't think that. So
yeah. Can you tell me how you decide whether a horse that you bring into your care will be put up for adoption, or whether they are like going to be in sanctuary with you, I suppose?
Is this to me?
Either one of you.
For me, my employees always say that I would never let any go if I could keep them all, because I hate when they get comfortable and happy and then you put them on a trailer again and they don't know where they're going. But for us, like the seniors, like Tahlia was saying, like the companion ones, I pretty much always don't even advertise them as adoptable, because I just want them to just get their golden years in a place that's protected and safe. And then our young ones, we train, we give them all the fundamentals, and we send them out with an extremely binding contract that keeps us a part of their life. But seniors definitely stay here, or really medically intensive ones.